Deportation of U.S.-Iraq War Resistors. My name is Sarah. I'm with the War Resistors Support Campaign. And you need to know, since we're going into an election, that the Conservative government of Stephen Harper is the only obstacle preventing people of conscience in the U.S. military from being allowed to stay in Canada when they object to fighting the illegal war in Iraq. Worse than that, on July 15th, under very questionable circumstances, Iraq war resistor Robin Long was deported from Canada. He was denied the right to appeal, the last step of the refugee process, and his treatment while in the custody of the RCMP and the Canadian Border Services was questionable. He has now been court-martialed. He received a 15-month sentence, and he's in San Diego. People want to write to Robin Long. We have that contact information. We encourage you to do that. He was very happy to be in Canada and would very much like to come back. He now will have a criminal record that will prevent access for him for the rest of his life to many services and jobs in the United States. This was what the judge who did not allow him to make his appeal thought was not irreparable harm. Shame on the judiciary. And he will not be able to return to Canada to see his son, who lives in Ontario. And they will not be able to go and visit him because they do not have the means to do it. So we need to prevent this from happening again. The particular timing of this event today, and events are happening all across Canada, literally from Newfoundland to Vancouver Island. On 23rd of September, Jeremy Hintzman, his wife, and his 2 children have received a voluntary departure date under a deportation order to leave Canada. And obviously there are legal things that are being done in the meantime to try and prevent this, but we need to stand up now, particularly because we have an election, particularly because the Conservatives are the only party in Parliament that oppose the war resistors. From the beginning, the NDP have supported them. The Bloc came on board, the Green Party supports them, and we shoehorn the Liberals into voting in our favor as well. So the majority of Parliament, not the minority Conservative government, support sanctuary for war resistors, and we need to hammer this home during this election. I'm just going to read for you a statement from Jeremy, because he's in Toronto. He obviously can't be at every event today, but he has sent out a statement, and I'm going to read that for you. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of you for coming out and showing your support today. 4.5 years ago, we came to Canada believing that it was, as Pierre Trudeau once said, a haven from militarism. Canada refused to take part in the war in Iraq because it felt that it was illegal according to international law. I was not willing to make myself complicit in a criminal enterprise, so Na, Liam, and myself made our way to the Great White North. On June 3rd, 2008, the Canadian Parliament passed a motion saying that war resistors should be able to remain in Canada. Despite this, the Harper government has ignored this motion and will deport us on September 23rd. Please make your voices heard and tell them that you support people of conscience. Whatever the final outcome may be, we will forever be thankful that so many of you were in solidarity with us. Jeremy Hintzman. Amnesty International has said that if Jeremy Hintzman is deported to the United States, he will be considered a prisoner of conscience. Next, we'll hear from a representative from BC Labour Against War, Terry Engler, a member of the ILWU Local 400, Longshore.
BC Labour Against the War is an organization composed of union members in BC. BC Labour Against War is directed by delegated representatives from recognized trade union organizations with members in BC. As trade unionists, we believe that peace is a core labor issue. As the largest civil organization in Canadian society and one of the strongest and most cohesive vehicles for social change, the labor movement has a responsibility to advocate for peace and justice. Our objective is to create a permanent presence within the BC labor movement to promote discussion and debate and to educate workers on issues concerning war and peace. Working people suffer disproportionately during war times. It's our children that go to war. It's the children of poor people that go to war, that are sent to war. It's the programs that the poor people need, that working people need, that get cut to send that money to the military-industrial complex. From the trade union perspective, a war resistor is a lot like a militant trade unionist. Is someone who says, the law may say this, as our forefathers and foremothers did. The law said we couldn't go on strike. We said, we're going to go on strike anyway. In the industry that I come from, my union is, we represent towboat workers. Seafarers, up until less than 100 years ago, could be shot or hung for quitting because you'd signed a contract with your employer. We, to this very day, visit ships in our harbor where we send people home who have signed contracts to work for 3 or 4 or 6 years, but they're ripped off, they're not paid properly, they're abused. They have the right to say no. One of the great heroes, martyrs of the BC trade union movement is Ginger Goodwin. Ginger Goodwin was shot for being a war resistor, mainly for being a good trade unionist, but he was shot because he said, I'm not going to go fight a war of empire. We have to embrace these young people that are saying no to war. They are our future. Our future, we need people that are willing to say no. Too many people say we have no choice. These people are standing up and saying no and taking significant consequences when they do that. We need to support them. I've been in favor of peace and against war for most of my life. And if I'm against war, the first people I have to support are those young men and women who say, I'm not doing this anymore. Because if all soldiers did that, war would end. So I'd like to say from the trade union movement, from my local, from the Labour Council of Vancouver District Labour Council and BC Labour Against War, we embrace the war resistors. We want everyone to embrace the war resistors because if war resistors win, we all win. Peace comes, war ends. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Terry. I have to say that the War Resistors Support Campaign is a really broad-based campaign that started 4 years ago. And believe me, I sure the hell didn't think I'd still be here 4 years later, but here we are. And trade unions were among the first to get on board in the support of war resistors. I would like you to know what it takes to support the war resistors. This campaign has been very broad-based. It's been dealing with Canadian Immigration Services. It's been dealing with Canadian Border Services and lawyers. It's been dealing with politicians. And it's been dealing with people. We've been doing legal work, we've been doing political work, and we've been doing social support work. What it takes to support war resistors is for us to do all of this public stuff and to get out there and get our hands dirty. And it also takes for us to welcome them into our homes, to contribute money, to get them going, to get them settled in Canadian society so that they can be those wonderful people that they are. What motivated them to come to Canada, those are the kind of people we want in our country, hardworking, peace-loving, conscientious people. So I encourage you, if you're able to support the campaign in any way, including temporary housing or some kind of donation,